There's a massive, high-tech financial war happening in China right now. And I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill scams. We're talking about a super sophisticated criminal underworld going head-to-head with an unprecedented government crackdown.
Just take a look at that number for a second. 30 billion yuan. That's almost 4.3 billion US dollars. And get this, that's not the size of some company. That's the value of illegal financial activity that authorities managed to uncover in just 6 months. It just gives you a sense of the absolutely staggering scale we're dealing with here.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to look at the huge operation that brought that 30 billion yuan number to light. Then, we'll dive deep into the fintech underworld to see exactly how these criminal gangs are pulling this off. After that, we'll see how the authorities are fighting back. And finally, we'll look ahead to the future of this crazy ongoing battle.
Okay, so let's start with that massive operation. For 6 months, from June to November, China's Ministry of Public Security and the National Financial Regulatory Administration, we'll just call them the NFRA, they teamed up for this really targeted campaign. And their goal wasn't just to make a few arrests, it was to get at the very root causes of these financial crimes.
And the results of this whole thing? Well, they were pretty incredible. The campaign swept through 17 key provinces. In that time, they uncovered over 1,500 individual cases. And maybe most importantly, they completely dismantled more than 200 professional criminal gangs. This wasn't just a warning shot. It was a major, coordinated move to try and clean up the financial market.
So what exactly were they fighting against? Well, Hua Liebing from the Ministry of Public Security puts it perfectly. He calls it a complete black and gray industrial chain. That's key. We're not talking about a bunch of random, disconnected crimes. This is a structured, organized machine that was built from the ground up to exploit the entire system. Okay, so let's pull back the curtain and see how this machine actually works. We're going inside the fintech underworld to really understand the mechanics behind this industrial-scale fraud.
Now, what's really wild is just how organized this is. It's a process. It all starts with false advertising to lure people in. But then, and this is crazy, they provide customized scripts and countermeasure tutorials to basically teach people how to commit fraud. From there, they forge everything you can imagine. Bank statements, property deeds, and finally, they have professional agents who literally negotiate with the financial institutions. It's like a full-service fraud factory.
And the people running these operations, well, they are a completely new breed of criminal. We are talking about highly professional people, sometimes even lawyers and debt collectors, who are using their inside knowledge to exploit every legal loophole they can find. They're using AI and other new tech to make their operations slicker and harder to spot. And it's not just a local problem anymore. These gangs are operating across borders.
To really see how this works in the real world, let's look at a case out of Qingdao. This isn't just theory, it's a huge loan fraud scheme that the police investigated, and it perfectly illustrates that criminal industrial chain we were just talking about.
So here's how they pulled off this pretty sophisticated scheme. First, the group recruited local people to basically act as debt carriers. Then, they forged everything, bank statements, property deeds, you name it, to make these people look like perfect mortgage candidates. But they didn't stop there. To jack up the loan value, they actually colluded with appraisals firms to inflate property values. And the final, audacious step? They bribed bank staff to make sure the bogus loans got approved.
And the payoff for all that work?
This one group managed to defraud banks of more than 120 million yuan in housing loans. That's over 17 million US dollars from a single operation. It just shows you the immense damage these organized groups can inflict. So, when criminals are this sophisticated, how in the world do the authorities even begin to fight back? Well, that brings us to our next section, the counterattack. This is really the story of regulators racing to keep up with a threat that's evolving at lightning speed. This quote from Xingui Jin of the NFRA really gets to the heart of the problem. He says the criminals have evolved into this high-tech, intelligent, industrialized force. But the really crucial part is that they are moving faster than the traditional ways of controlling risk can handle. The old playbook, it just doesn't work anymore. And this really highlights that gap perfectly. Traditional risk control was built for a different time, checking individual paper documents, focusing on local threats. But today's fraud? It's built on AI and big data, it uses professional forgers, and it operates at a massive, online, borderless scale. It is a whole new ballgame.
So what are they doing about it? They're finally coordinating. By the end of November, financial regulators had handed over leads worth 21 billion yuan to the police, and at the exact same time, the banks and other institutions, with some official guidance, reported another 17 billion yuan worth of cases themselves. You can see this two-pronged attack is a massive, unified effort.
So the strategy now is multi-layered.
It's not just about arrests. A huge part of it is stronger teamwork between law enforcement and the courts. They're also putting the pressure on financial institutions to take primary responsibility for their own risk. And crucially, they're fighting fire with fire by investing heavily in big data and AI. And finally, they're tightening the leash on those third-party partners who can sometimes be the weakest link in the chain. But here's the thing. This fight is far from over. So for our final section, let's look at how this cat-and-mouse game is shaping up for the future. The battle is really just entering its next phase.
This quote from Hua Leibing again is just so important. It highlights this fascinating paradox. The more successful the authorities are at cracking down, the more the criminals are forced to adapt. The crackdowns push them deeper underground, which makes their methods even more complex and even harder to trace. In a weird way, success breeds a more sophisticated enemy.
So, knowing this, the authorities already have a clear plan for the future. They're going to intensify crackdowns on the most critical illegal activities. They're going to maintain this high-pressure posture to make sure criminals can't get comfortable. That cross-departmental cooperation we talked about, they're going to strengthen it even more. And really importantly, they're looking ahead by proposing new laws to close the loopholes these criminals are so good at finding.
And all of this leaves us with one final, crucial question. In a world where technology allows crime to evolve at lightning speed, can the authorities ever actually win? Or are they just locked in a perpetual arms race, always destined to be one step behind? It's a battle for the future of our financial security, and you can be sure the next move is already being planned.